Hello. How is everyone? I still have a cold. I've been so out of it. Like the whole last week. I feel like I've been just gone. But we're here now. We're gonna do the Stitchalong. So this is the very first day. The very first day of the Stitchalong. If you don't have your pattern yet, grab it from the shop. It's still 10 pounds. I think I'm just going to keep this one at 10 pounds for this time and encourage more people to join. Because I'm not going to lie, I don't have very many people this time. So I think it's because I was sick and I haven't been sharing as much. Also, I haven't done the giveaway yet. So that's probably my fault as well. So we'll get that up this evening. So what we're going to do today is we're going to start super simple. Okay, we're going to do a backstitch and we're just going to do the Create a Life You. These kind of 4 words up here. And then what I'm going to do is show you how to separate your threads and then thread your needle and do some knots. Okay, so like super easy, super simple. Also, it's not going to be a long video. I still have the last like 4 videos of the last stitch along to put up because I thought they were uploaded, and someone asked me the other day, can you please upload the videos? Because one of my friends is doing it on YouTube and there's no more videos. And I was like, excuse me, there are. So I went to go check and they're not there. So I have to do that tonight too. So, right, what we're going to do, I'm going to start with the black thread. You can do any color that you want for these 4 words right here. And I think I'm going to try just 3 or 4 strands. And what I like to do is take it and kind of pull it apart a little bit. So I've got 4 here and 2 here. And like hold it up to the letters and see if that is going to be too thick or too thin for you. So obviously you can make these really thick if you want to, or you can make them a lot thinner. So let's just try 3 and see if that's any better or worse. And then we'll go from there. And I'll show you the 2 kind of ways that I've separated the threads before in the past. Now 3 will give you a thinner line, especially for like you. Yeah? I'm going to do 3, I think. Although the 4 did look nice and thick, so. I'm just afraid that's going to be a little bit too thick for the small letters. Let's do 3. We'll do 3 strands. And there's 2 ways to separate the threads. So the first way is what I like to call the Y method. I didn't make it up. It just looks like a Y. See? And you take the 3 strands in one and 3 strands in the other because we want 3 strands. And you're going to slightly untwist and just put your finger in the middle of the open space of that Y, and you're just going to kind of untwist like that and pull it all the way down. Now, as far as the length of thread, I always make mine way too long. That's my fault. But they always say, they always say, try to get about from your fingertip to your elbow and then halfway again. That's kind of what I go by. So if you get it all the way here, think of your needle down here and then your knot down here, and you've got a little tail, and then the tail is going to be like the extra little bit. Okay? So here we go. I didn't even show you how to thread your needle. Was like, oh, let's just start stitching. You can tell I'm just totally out of it. Right, threading your needle. If you are new to stitching and you've never threaded a needle before, there's a super easy way, okay? You want to use this kind of motion with your fingers. See? Like that. And you're going to put your thread right between, like that. Okay? And then the eye of your needle, right there, over, and then just push that through. And it goes through every time. See? You can also use a needle threader. I don't know if I have one. It might be in the bottom drawer. Oh, here's one. like this, okay? And these work like this. You put it through the eye of your needle like that, and then you wrap your thread inside the hook, and then you pull it through. So easy peasy, especially if you have a hard time threading. There's no shame in using a needle threader, okay? So the next one's going to be a knot. You can obviously just do a knot at the end, okay? So make a loop and put it through like this. And then you can kind of shimmy that down all the way to the end, like that. Now, if you have like one strand of thread or two strands of thread, sorry, you might want to do a couple knots on top of each other, again, by shimmying that knot all the way down where you want it to, okay? So literally just push it down like that, and it'll be on top of each other. The other way is the quilter's knot. So I'm going to show you how to do that too. Hi, Sarah. Mel says, I ordered a ton of those sweaters. Aren't they so good? So what you're going to do for the quilter's knot is put your thread over top of your needle and put your thumb on top of that. Okay, so it looks like that. And then you're going to do some loops. Twist your thread around your needle. So maybe 1, 2, or 3 times. 2, maybe, okay? And then you're going to put your finger on top of all those loops, like that. And then pull your needle through. And then you have a knot at the bottom. See? That's a really easy way. Why not wrap around your finger and shimmy it down that way for a knot? Wrap around your finger. I don't know, I've never done it that way. I've always just gone like this and then just pushed it down like that. You'll have to send me a video. Send a video in the group. I've seen someone like do this kind of thing and then they like roll it off. I did it just then, but it's quite fiddly for me. But I tend to do the quilter's knot more than anything else. So I tend to always just do kind of wrapping it around a couple times because it's just like dead easy. But like, do what works best for you. Do you know what I mean? The other thing is that you don't actually have to do a knot if you don't want to. So some people, they just let the thread dangle off the back and then they knot it all at the same time. Some people don't ever knot at all. Some people leave a little bit of thread at the back and then they go back and they don't knot, but they kind of weave the ends in underneath some of their stitches that they've done before. So there's lots of different ways that you can do it. You just have to find what works for you and then do that way. I will say that with the quilter's knot, when you do it, you do have to do it a certain way, okay? So I always found that it's better if you put your thread over top like this, yeah? And then you wind towards yourself, like 1, 2. Okay, so it's wrapped around. There's a Jessie hair. Do you see? Okay, and then when you hold this in between your fingers, let me see if I can do it. You're basically like holding the thread like that, wrapped around. Okay, and then when you pull it through, you've got your knot there. But I found it's a bit trickier if you do it the other way. You know what I mean? If you wrap it around the other way, I find that it gets a little bit like, I don't know, like didn't make a knot as well. So let's do our 3 strands. I feel like I'm going to regret this. I feel like I'm going to want to do 4, but it's fine. Don't worry about it. Right. So we're going to do the create here. Yeah. A life you, and then we'll do love differently and we'll do it with different stitches. So don't stitch the love part. We're only doing the create part. So I'll probably show you the create part. We're going to do a back stitch and I'm going to show you the whipped back stitch too, because if this is your very first stitch along, then your stitches might not be perfectly in line, which means that some of them might be a little bit wonky. And when we do a whipped back stitch, it makes all of those stitches kind of flow together and lay really, really nicely. And you actually can't tell if any of them are wonky at all. Wonky at all. Guys, I've got this like really bad voice. I'm really sorry. So yeah, we're going to get started. So what you're going to do, let's just zoom in. Hi, Natasha. Hopefully this is like a nice white color. Okay. Because on my screen, it's like almost like a gray. So what you're going to do is you're going to come up here. Yeah. You're going to make your first stitch. So the first stitch is going to be quite short. All right. And we want to keep all of our stitches short for this one, for this back stitch, for the lettering, because the lettering is in cursive. So it kind of flows all around. And if you make your stitches too long, you're going to end up with points like this, especially in areas like the E or the curve here like this, or the curve for the C. If you make them too long, you start to get quite angular and like geometric looking. So with the back stitch, you're going to come up in front of your stitches on the line like this, and then you're going to go back down that same hole like that. All right. Now the good thing is that if you picked a dark color, all of the stitches tend to kind of blend together. That's not the same hole. Which means that you can make some stitches a little bit longer and some stitches a little bit shorter, and it really won't matter so much. Okay? Whereas if you were just doing like a straight line, you would be able to see it a little bit more. And if you had a light color, a lighter color than black, like say white, you'll be able to see every single little stitch that you do. So I'm going to do the C and then the R, and I'm going to go back and then do the whipped part so that you can see what I mean, how it kind of smooths all of our stitches out. No music today. I forgot the Yoto player. There we go. So again, just keeping them, we're trying to keep them about the same length. But if you have to go a little bit longer or a little bit shorter, that's okay. Please do not stress out about stitch length or have to mark it or anything like that, okay? I think this is such a nice design for this type of year, because I think, at least for me, the back to school season is always like, I feel like I need to spring clean my house. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but I always feel like back to school, I want to get a new notebook. I want to get a new pen. I want to declutter my house. I don't know what it is about autumn, fall, back to school. I feel like I need to get all my ducks in a row for Thanksgiving and Christmas and like, I don't know. I'm like making Christmas lists. I'm like decorating the house for fall. I don't know what it is, but it just makes me feel like, I don't know, this design makes me feel like we should be like living intentionally without being too like woo woo, you know? Like this is the time of year that you get to like create a life that you love. And the other thing that I'm like super drawn to at the moment, I don't know about you guys, is like DIY everything. Like I low-key want to, like, quit my job and, like, be, like, a straight-up homemaker. Like, homemade everything. Like, jam. Like, make jam and, like, bread and, like, everything. Like, the whole 9 yards. Like, buy an apron. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what it is. Okay, so what we want to do for this point here, we want to keep it nice and pointy. Okay, so I'm going to come up here. Just here at the very end. And then come down like this. And the reason is because, so I have two layers of fabric that I'm stitching on. But if you only have one layer and you go kind of from here to here or there to there, you're going to see the thread travel around your hoop. Okay? So I've got 2 layers on. It makes it so that the thread, you can't see the thread from the front, firstly. But secondly, it makes it so that it's a little bit more to grip for the wood hoops. So it makes it like nice and tight, because it's a little bit like sturdier. Do you know what I mean? And I use really nice fabric, so it's not like a fabric thing. But I've noticed that when I use 2 layers of fabric, my hoop stays tighter for longer. I also find that if I do have to travel a little bit, it's okay, meaning that like you can't see through the threads from the front to the back. All right. And then I don't know, it just feels like a little bit more lush. Like the white looks like white. You know what I mean? Like the white fabric just looks like white, like nice and I don't know how else to explain it. I'm looking for a different hoop where I did not use 2 layers, and I don't see one over here. I'll use 2 for all of them, because I was going to show you the difference, but I can't. So I'll do that a different day. But yeah, that's kind of why I use the two layers. So before, when I would only use 1, I would always kind of have to think, especially with black thread, to keep the same line and not make my thread make little jumps. Okay? So the reason I'm explaining this is because just a minute ago, you saw we did a back stitch kind of from here to over to here. And then I could have done a back stitch from here going up, but instead I've come up the same hole here and done a forward stitch going down so that the thread stays in this line and it doesn't make a jump like that from here over. Because if I only had 1 layer of fabric, you would be able to see a little faint line coming from here to there that's going to cut off your R. Does that make sense? Hope so. Hope it does. And then we're going to continue our back stitch after that. Now, technically today we're only doing back stitch, but I told you I'm going to show you the whipped back stitch as well. And that is because, like I said earlier, if you do make a mistake, if you do, you look back and you think, wow, like these letters are all crooked, like who stitched that? You can always whip it and it will make it just a little bit more smooth looking. And it will smooth out some of those stitches that are kind of like going to the side a little bit. And when I do the whipped back stitch, I like to do the whipping part. You're going to see what I mean in just a minute. I like to do the whipping part in the same direction as I did the cursive. And that is because when you stitch, it's just like when you write. So you kind of want the curve to go like this, and then this to be under, and then this one to be over. Yeah? So you kind of don't want this vertical part of the R to be over the part that goes that way, because as you write it, that's how you would write it. Yeah? Okay, so I'm going to stop this, do a knot on the back. I'm going to show you how I do my knots. So when I do the knots on the back, you can either do a knot like this. Yeah. And what I like to do is you hold this part and you can put your needle like that. And then when you make it, it goes all the way down so close. Down there like that. Or you can put your finger just over. Yeah. So again, pull the part that's here. Yeah. Like that. Okay. Or, again, you can weave your thread, your thread underneath some of the stitches. Like this. Okay. And then cut it off like that. So whichever way works for you, that's okay. You can notice though that I kind of kept the same line. You can see that it's like, it makes like a backwards C and an R, just like the front. Okay. So let's go back again. And this is how you do a whipped back stitch. So we're going to make our knot. Again. Come up again at the very beginning. And what you're going to do is you're going to go under the stitches, okay, but not in the fabric. So we've come up through the fabric right here, and we're going to go back down at the end, and that's it. So from now on, we're not going to go through the fabric anymore. And you need to pick if you're going to go from kind of right to left or left to right. Meaning, if we turn our hoop like this, are you going to put your needle from the right to the left, like that? Or are you going to put your needle kind of from this way, left to right? Yeah? Like that. So it depends, because you're going to pick a way and you're going to do that the whole time. All right? So you can't go back and forth. So you can't go this way and then that way and then that way. That's a different stitch, and it's going to make a wavy line. We don't want a wavy line. So I'm going to do this way. That's how I always do it. Okay? And you're going to put it underneath. And then come back again and go under the next stitch. So do you see how it's just underneath that stitch like that? Let's see if I can zoom in without it getting like really weird and grainy. Okay, and then back to this way. And then under the next stitch. And then back this way. Now this part is optional, so if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. If you just want to do a back stitch for the lettering, you totally can. I'm doing 3 strands. I wanted to show you the whipped back stitch and the back stitch. But obviously you can do it with, you could just do 6 strands and do a back stitch if you wanted to. If you like thicker letters. Okay. I probably could have got away with 4 strands here if I'm honest. You could use a variegated thread if you wanted to. Variegated thread changes color as the thread goes, so you don't have to change the color. It just changes. I don't think I have any. I think these ones are gold and silver. Yeah, those are gold and silver. You should see this mess. Look at that. I'm not going to show you anymore because I'm supposed to have been clearing all this up. So here's an example of a variegated thread. So it starts off as white or like a light green, and then as you pull it, it gets darker and darker and darker. Yeah, and then it will go lighter and lighter and lighter until it's back to the light green color. You can see as I wind it up. It changing. It's darker now. And then lighter now. Shame. Are you ringing the shame bell like in Game of Thrones? That is naughty. But yeah, I didn't quite get around to separating all of this mess out. And the reason is because I had to get all the stuff from around the house. And I don't know, like, I keep saying, like, you know, we moved. It's been 2 years now, Tori. Like, the problem is that when you've got kids and I've got to clean it all up before they get home. Do you know what I mean? So, like, today Miles was at nursery, and then Ellis went to my mother-in-law's for the day. But then by the time that I was all done and had my lunch, which I had a very early lunch today so I could just, you know, crack on and work, it was 10:30. And then I've got to clean everything up before David and Miles got back home. And they got home at 3:30 today. So I had 4 hours. And the problem is that you've got to get it all out, but then you've also got to pick it all up. You know? You got to pick it all up afterwards before they get home. Okay, now we want to keep this pointy, so I'm going to put it down like this. Okay. And then I'm going to weave it just a little bit. And then do that last little bit. Because it's just this little bit right here. Now that's just because I want to have a nice pointy top right here. Okay? So if I didn't want to have it nice and pointy, I could just keep going. If I wanted to have it a slight curve, they could just keep going. But if you keep going, it's going to make that not pointy anymore. Not crisp. I know some of you are going to be like, you said you weren't going to go back down through the fabric until the very end. Lies. Oopsies. Now, if you know me, you know I do not like the whipped backstitch because I don't like to stitch it twice. It takes so much longer. Give it a little tug there. It takes so much longer because you have to stitch it again. You know? But I'll zoom in so you can like really see what it's like. It does give like a really nice like a rope like texture. Yeah? And it smooths out any of those stitches that are a little bit wonky. So that's what you're going to do for the rest of the words. Okay? Create a life you. That's all you're doing. So I'm going to try and keep these really short like I did for the last underwater Stitchalong because they uploaded super, super quick and I was able to keep on top of it except for when I thought I did. When I actually didn't. When I thought that they all uploaded, but they didn't upload. So that's my fault. But I'll go and do those this evening because they're all on my phone and everything. So yeah, there we go. That's what you're going to do. Like I said earlier, you could probably get away with 4 strands. I only did 3. You could do 4 for this one and 4 for this one. And if you were worried about it, you could do A and U with 3 if you thought maybe it might be a bit too thick. And what I mean by too thick is think of it as like using a pencil or like using a marker. Do you know what I mean? Or using a pencil or using like a big fat highlighter. All right? But you have the same words. So if you go over this with a pencil, you'll be able to see the words really, really easy. If you went over it with like a really thick highlighter, then the highlighter is going to take up more space of the lettering. Okay? Like a bold font. Yeah? It's going to be thicker. So if you have thicker here, you might lose the details. You know? So it's just something to think about. That's all. So that's kind of how I think about strands when you're filling it in. Does it have to be quite thin so that you can see the details, like maybe an outline, or like the pins here will have to be, not all 6 strands, because you want them to be thin? Or do you want them to be a little bit thicker and bolder? And that will just completely change the look of your embroidery. So I'm going to love you and leave you. And I'll see you guys tomorrow when we'll do the next part. All right. Bye.